Boker Tov, everyone. So I shut my window because I tried to do a video and it was so loud outside. The traffic was so loud and loud trucks going by that I was like screaming into the camera because I couldn't hear myself. So we had our Torah study last night. It was really good, and I was really happy that actually Nal showed up, and I haven't talked to Nal in a long time. I'm not really one for Skype, and he's on my Skype, and that was sort of when we usually talked. So it was good to see Nal. Um, Also, it was last night's Parsha was really a lot of it was somewhat redundant. I mean, we learned about the census. We learned about the holidays and the sacrifices for the holidays, like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, etc. Um, and the two most important things I think that we kind of talked about were Moshe's death and also the laws of inheritance. And today I did a little bit of research and I came up with there's a document from a, a yeshiva in Israel, I believe, and it talks about the laws of inheritance, and there's a loophole in the laws of inheritance, which I found really quite fascinating. And the loophole is that if your father is, sick and still alive, your father can give away any assets he sees fit to anyone, male or female, son or daughter, doesn't matter. So really, it doesn't make much sense, because if your father is still alive and decides to give you these assets, so he can put them in your name, so that when he does die, they're already in your name. So there's a loophole right there. Um, so that would make this whole thing null and void. The only time it would actually have an impact is if your father suddenly passed away. Then, if the father had a son, it would automatically go to the son. Now, I'm not really fond of all this patriarchal nonsense. Um, and, I like to think of Judaism as being progressive. And I don't really like the idea, especially in an economy like the one we have today, of leaving the rest of your kids high and dry while just giving everything to your firstborn son. I think that's ridiculous. Um, so I looked up a few other things, and there is a small summary, a small sort of uh, couple paragraphs that are critical of the laws of inheritance, and I'm just going to read you them. It says, more than a month ago in the Parashat Bahar, it says, the land must not be sold beyond reclaim, for the land is mine, you are but strangers resident with me. So basically what that is that's Hashem saying, the land is mine, so you don't really have to argue about it. There is nothing to argue about. So the verse, the verse that we read last night assumes that only males can inherit, consistent with a patrilineal descent of the clans of the time. And that's the most important word, of the time. The case brought in our Sidra by the daughters of Zelophehad, who had no sons, that their father's name would be lost, and the family loses their rights to the tribal lands, raises a challenge. Their case is answered in the Sidra, but then qualified in Numbers 36. As Rabbi Pamela Wax eloquently explains in her contribution to the Sidra in the Women's Torah Commentary, the Torah provides the foundation for discriminatory inheritance laws that the rabbi sees upon, almost without exception, to make even more stringent. Naturally, most of the commentary to the Sidra is upon inheritance, and of course this is the plain meaning of the biblical narrative. Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah provided a voice of courage, insight, and protest in a new generation that arose. But then that voice was dulled by halacha, so that the echo through the generations has been faint, almost inaudible. Thankfully, women, both secular and religious, have amplified the echo of these 5 women in Jewish and secular society, so that women's rights, not just those of inheritance, are linked to their names. And this is, I think, one of the most important lessons, is that women are human beings, okay? We're not property, okay? We have a name too, and our names are just as important. Not just the father's name, not just the male name, but the female name is also important. And so I think that if we want to maintain a a healthy society, a healthy Jewish society, then we need to understand that um, this sort of patriarchal son inheriting everything from the father is unhealthy. I don't think that there's any counterbalance you can give to offset an inheritance, um, especially in today's times when we face such economic hardships. I mean, how are you supposed to tell your daughters when you say you're a father, you have one son and you've got three daughters, and you're you are going to give everything to your son and leave your daughters without anything. In this economic climate, in today's day and age, that's that's selfish. That's really selfish. Um, Back then in those times, okay, but not today's times. Not today. We've outgrown that. Okay, we don't have to sit in this sort of patriarchal landscape and try to find justifications for reasons why women their names cannot be important and not inherit. Okay, we don't have to sit back there anymore. Therefore, I think it's important that um, we accept the fact that um, female names and male names are equal in Judaism, and that in order for Judaism to survive, we should not discriminate against one sex or the other, that we should all be equal. Thanks for listening. Shalom.